Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Coming to you from Washington's premier indoor shooting facility. Of course, that is Security Gun Club right here in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, it seems like all the time when I'm on Twitter, what we now call X, I will see the Vice President, the President, other members of the Democratic leadership just about every couple hours tweet, "We must ban assault weapons. We must ban high-capacity magazines." And it's almost like Beetlejuice. If you say it enough times, then I guess it just happens. Well, I'm here to tell you that no matter how many times they tweet it, no matter how many times they say it, no matter how many times they try to legislate it, neither one of those pieces of legislation could ever withstand constitutional scrutiny. And that's because the proof is actually right in the numbers. We'll explain how in just a moment. So today, let's spend a few minutes and let's talk about why a national magazine ban or assault weapon ban could never stand. Okay, before we get going too far down the road we're going down, proud to announce that this video is being brought to you by Right to Bear. That's right, legal protection for self-protection. Listen, good lawyers aren't cheap, cheap lawyers aren't good. You're not truly prepared unless you have Right to Bear back you. You will always get an attorney-answered hotline, so you will always have a confidential phone call. There are no cap limits for either civil or criminal defense. This covers all forms of self-defense. So from a fist to a firearm, from a fat lip to a dead body, you are covered, and you will have some of the nation's most passionate 2A attorneys in your corner fighting for you. And right now, if you visit my friends at protectwithbear.com and you use the promo code WGL, you will receive 10% off. Listen, you need to protect yourself so that you can protect them. Visit my good friends at protectwithbear.com. Okay, so this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the constant beating of the same two drums out of Washington, D.C., which is that we need a federal ban on assault weapons, or what you and I call semi-automatic rifles, and a federal ban on high-capacity magazines, what you and I call standard capacity magazines. Without getting too deep into the woods and geeking out way farther than we need to go, we know that anytime government proposes an outright ban on an item, such as a platform of firearm, or on such things as necessary accessories like magazines, well, we will analyze that under the common use test, because the common use test specifically states that government may not ban firearms which are in common use for lawful purposes, all right? Now, when you also take a look at the common use test, you will know that the only historical tradition that we have as a country of banning things, as blanket bans, are items which are deemed to be both dangerous and unusual. Now, I will acknowledge that every firearm has the potential to be dangerous, not too sure about magazines, but really where the government's argument as to the legitimacy of any of these bans is going to fall apart, and where the whole fallacy of this falls apart is when we take a look at as the and unusual. Because to be unusual, there has to be something extraordinary about it. There has to be something rare. It has to be scarce in some way. That's what makes it unusual. So how unusual are high-capacity magazines, or what you and I call standard capacity magazines? Well, we've already done one video on this, but as you know, the National Shooting Sports Foundation did an incredibly thorough study taking a look at data provided by who? The ATF. And it basically looked at sales from 1990 all the way through 2021. And they were taking a look at sales of platforms of firearms, and they were also taking a look at sales of magazines. And they were doing that because they wanted to kind of see how many magazines were being sold in the box with the firearm versus how many were being sold post-production, post-market magazines, and then what was the capacity limits of those standard magazines. Now, we could probably do a 10, 15-minute video going through all the data in this study. And again, kudos to NSSF, who did a fantastic job. They do a great job of looking out for the firearms industry. But the punchline from this whole study, as it relates to magazines, is as follows. An estimated 963 million magazines were produced and entered the commercial market between 1990 and 2021. Of the estimated 963 million magazines, approximately 74%, or 717 million magazines, have a capacity of 11 plus rounds. Okay, did you catch that? 717 million magazines that exceed more than 10 rounds. Now, the most recent estimate of the population of the United States took place in 2022. That came up to 333 million individuals living in the United States, which means that every individual in the United States would get at least a little over 2 high-capacity magazines, or what we call standard capacity magazines. That's how uncommon they are. There's more than 2 for every living human in the United States. So anytime the president or the vice president or Merrick Garland or anyone else starts talking about banning high-capacity magazines, please understand that they are going to have to attempt to prove a court that they have the lawful authority, the constitutional authority, to ban something that exists in this country by conservative estimates at 717 million, which means more likely than not, we're probably somewhere around 750 million, or 750 million. And that means that there is absolutely no way that a high-capacity magazine ban ever withstands constitutional scrutiny. Now, you sit there and go, well, okay, what about assault weapons, or what we call semi-automatic rifles? Well, in the same study, I found another interesting little piece of data. Because again, remember, we are analyzing the sales in the firearm industry from 1990 to 2021, and we're relying on the Department of Justice and the ATF's own data. This is what else we learned. The latest estimate of modern sporting rifles produced between 1990 and 2021 is over 28 million, making aftermarket magazines for these firearms abundant in the United States, where such capacity magazines are not banned. Okay, did you catch that? In that time period, 1990 to 2021, there are over 28 million semi-automatic rifles, modern sporting rifles, what your state may want to call assault weapons, placed into circulation. And candidly, I think that that is an incredibly conservative estimate, okay? But that is actually fully finished, completed semi-automatic rifles that were put into the market. So how many others were there that were built out from lower receivers, whether they were serialized lower receivers or unserialized lower receivers? But we know that the modern sporting rifle is in fact the most prevalent, most common rifle owned in the United States. So listen, the bottom line is no matter how many times they scream it, no matter how many times they beat on that drum, and no matter how many times they'll try to legislate it, at the end of the day, none of this is constitutionally permissible, and it's not really even a question of what the Constitution says, it's just a question of simple math. Hey listen, you guys might have ideas for videos. If you do, why don't you let us know? Go ahead and click on that link right there and let us know if you have an idea for something that we should be talking about here on the channel. Some of the best videos we ever did weren't actually our ideas to begin with. In the meantime, if you've got any questions about this issue or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington Gun Law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information is right down there in the description box. And then finally, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching. Stay safe.